You know, it's a good thing Jamie is dating a rich woman because the amount of clothes he's gonna burn through with these superpowers. Hey everyone, my name is Max Aaron James. This is a review of the movie Blue Beetle, written by Gareth Dunnett Alcocer and directed by Angel Manuel Soto. This movie is about college graduate Jamie Reyes, whose life is changed when a scarab chooses him to wield its power, and he ends up with unpredictable, unexpected superpowers. With about half the budget and seemingly much less marketing, this movie is still much entertaining and provides a much better story than The Flash with much better visual effects. To the point which makes me question even more, where did the money go with The Flash? Probably to protect Ezra Miller, to be honest. The beginning of this movie, I will admit, was a bit concerning, especially with the dialogue that was so on the nose, I was rolling my eyes. It is when Jamie gets his powers that the film really picks up the pace, gets its footing, and just goes. When it comes to the family dynamic or everyone, all the characters that are a part of Jamie Reyes' family, George Lopez obviously stands out, and I can see that he's really trying here. Susan Sarandon really shows her experience as an actor, especially being across from people who maybe do not have as much experience, and it really shows when she's exchanging dialogue with another person. Now, Zoto Maridueño as Jamie Reyes, our wonderful lead, I have no issues. I think he was well cast. Really good as the lead, very entertaining. I like seeing him on screen. I'm happy with him. Now let's get to Mexican culture, or in general, let's talk about how to present culture of the community being represented. You have certain moments or certain films where the culture is ingrained in the characters, in the world, in the story. You have others where the characters or the story is so colorblind to the point where you can feel that the studios are casting people of color for the sake of diversity, but you do not really feel that they are being their genuine selves. Then you have movies similar to this where it feels very forced, the culture, with references to that feels whatever the equivalent of fan service is for racial or ethnic communities, as though it is trying to appease to them. I really liked the representation and the cultural, pride presented in this, especially being Mexican, and I am sure my mom would love to see this, but a lot of it does feel forced, and I think other people would feel the same way. And I feel other people have experienced this with other movies, not just about Mexican or Latinx or Hispanic culture, just in general. It is about being authentic and genuine with the culture, with the representation, with the characters. And that is when people, I feel, connect most to it. That is a major issue I had in the beginning of the movie. But again, I really appreciate the representation. And I really like that the family dynamic or the theme of familyness, is that a thing? That being the core of this story. I think it would be really unfair to compare this movie to other recent superhero movies, even The Flash or let's say The Batman, considering those movies are not only slightly darker but are presented in a way that is arguably more mature or trying to present some realism to it. This movie I would compare more so to the 2008 Iron Man, or better yet, Spy Kids. It is a definitive family film for the family to watch and for kids to enjoy as much as adults. And I think that is established immediately. And I like that. I think if you go in with that knowledge and knowing that it's not going to be the next Endgame or Multiverse of Madness, then you will understand what this movie is. And I think it recognizes that and establishes that identity. I think the issue is that maybe because we are so accustomed to a certain way that movies are, such as Zack Snyder's DC films, that when presented something like this that is in the tone of the early 2000s Fantastic Four and more so Spy Kids, that we see it as very kiddish, childish, and maybe not so good. But when it comes to it being a family film, it's actually pretty good and hits the beats that it needs to. I am not familiar with the other work from Dunnett Alcocer, and so I will say with this movie, it is a pretty good concept and idea and a very flawed story. There are moments throughout this movie where we learn new things about characters that were not established or even hinted at or teased in the beginning of the movie. So as it goes on, I'm going in thinking, oh, you can do that too? Such as the grandmother's history. It's not even teased or mentioned in the beginning, and all of a sudden it's dropped on us. Or Jamie's sister, her being able to be a graffiti artist. At no point did I see her drawing, doing graffiti, talking about art school, or anything pertaining to art until I see her doing graffiti. So it just kind of just gets dropped on us. So this movie suffers a lot with the writing, and still I like that they reached out to a Mexican writer, a Mexican filmmaker, but this is a good example of being offered or provided so limited seats for people of color. George Lopez becomes a walking plot device by the end of this film, and there are some inconsistencies throughout, but they were not strong enough to pull me out of the movie, but I did question it in that moment and try to refer back to earlier in the film, thinking that makes no sense. I am very happy to see Xolo Maridueño in a lead like this, in a role like this, and I hope more opportunities come to him after this movie comes out. And if a sequel comes in, I'd like to see him, reclaim the role. Just maybe get a better writer. I think directing-wise, I don't see too many issues with it. I think it's your basic, typical superhero movie. Another thing that bothered me so much about the writing is that it's so many little things that could have easily been smoothed out with maybe other eyes being on it, or just a couple more drafts, and it would have been fixed a bit. Someone could have just read over the dialogue, maybe do a table read, move some action around. Something so simple that it becomes very bothersome. James Gunn does claim that this is the beginning of his universe, even though this movie was, I believe, announced prior to him, coming in. Don't know if that's a way of him promoting this movie or just trying to get people back on the DC train so maybe he doesn't end up looking as bad as Kathleen Kennedy. Who knows? Anyway, did you get a chance to watch this movie? What did you think about it? What did you think of this video? Let me know in the comments below. And until next time, y'all take care of each other. Check up on one another. Be sure to check up on yourself. And remember, potential has no limit.